The forest never truly sleeps. Even at night, when the moon spills silver across the leaves, the air is alive with whispers, the rustle of small creatures, the faint crack of a branch under a predator's paw, the distant howl of a wolf asserting its presence. I've always found comfort in it, the shadows and sounds, perhaps because the forest mirrors my own life, half light, half dark, never fully belonging anywhere. My name is Celine Ardent, half human, half wolf. And the world, my pack, has never fully known what to do with someone like me. Sometimes I think it would have been easier to be one or the other, to be fully wolf, embraced by the pack in their rules, to be fully human, free from claws, fangs, and the constant tug of the moon. Instead, I exist in the edges, watching and listening, unseen unless I wish otherwise. Tonight, the air is cooler than usual, a hint of frost curling along the edges of leaves. I move quietly, my paws silent on the soft earth as I make my way toward the old clearing. It's a place I discovered as a child, a place where I can feel the pulse of the forest fully, where the moon feels close enough to touch. I need it tonight. My heart is restless. The pull of something unseen hums beneath my skin, a tension I can't explain. Kalen. His name drifts through my thoughts like a scent I can't shake. The alpha of my pack, the man whose presence is both comforting and terrifying. His strength is unquestionable, his authority absolute. But beneath it all, there is a gentleness I've glimpsed only when he believes no one is watching. His eyes, golden, piercing, knowing, have met mine more times than I can count. Each time it's like fire strikes silently, sparking something unspoken between us. And yet, neither of us dares voice it. The full moon approaches, and still we wait. Perhaps out of fear, perhaps out of respect, perhaps because the timing has never felt right. I pause at the edge of the clearing, the moonlight spilling silver over the grass, and breathe deeply. The forest exhales around me. And then I sense it, a presence. Not the wind, not the nocturnal scurry of animals, but something deliberate, aware, commanding. My fur pricks along my spine. My instincts sharpen. He steps from the shadows without sound. Darius. The rival alpha I've only ever heard of in hushed whispers, tales told to children to warn them of the dangers beyond our borders. Tall, broad, with a presence that bends the air around him, he moves like a storm contained within a single body. His eyes, dark and intense, find mine almost immediately. I should be afraid. I should run. My body wants to obey that instinct, yet something inside me halts me, keeps me rooted to the spot. His gaze holds mine, and I feel a pull I cannot name. The tales are true. He is dreadful, commanding, powerful. But there is something else, something I can't understand, something dangerous and magnetic. It is as if the universe itself is testing me, placing me in the eye of a storm I cannot escape. I want to speak, to break the silence, yet no words come. And then he does something unexpected. He inclines his head slightly, a gesture that feels almost intimate. And in that fleeting moment, the world narrows to just us. But the moment shatters. The forest does not forgive inaction. Kalen appears at the edge of the clearing, his presence asserting itself without a word. My pulse quickens, and a pang of fear, real fear, surges through me. Not for myself, but for what this meeting could mean. Kalen's eyes are sharp, wary, protective. There is a storm in them, barely restrained, and I know he senses what I cannot yet articulate, that my attention, my heart, is not his alone tonight. Darius steps back, observing Kalen now, measuring him. I feel the tension coil through the clearing like a living thing. My own heart thrums wildly, torn between the two forces before me. And yet, amid the tension, I notice the subtle sparks in Kalen's gaze. the same fire I've glimpsed before. Desire, yes, but also fear. Fear of crossing boundaries, of making choices that could shatter everything. I take a tentative step back, reminding myself of my place in this world, of the rules that govern us, the pacts that define us. I should not be here. I should not be drawn to Darius, nor should I allow Kalen to see the turmoil within me. And yet, my eyes betray me. They flicker between the two men, and in that flicker, I see everything unspoken: longing, power, attraction, restraint. The forest seems to hold its breath. Even the wind pauses, and the distant howl of a wolf fades into nothingness. The prophecy comes to mind, whispered long ago by the elder of the pack. When the silver moon reaches its peak, the hearts of the proud shall burn, and the shadow of fate will turn all that is held dear to ash. I had not understood it then. I do not fully understand it now, but I sense that the prophecy is watching tonight, waiting, as if it knows that choices made under this moon will shape more than just hearts. They will shape destinies. Darius finally moves away, vanishing into the shadows as silently as he appeared. My body relaxes slightly, but the pull does not fade. It lingers in my chest, a reminder that the world is far larger, far more dangerous, and far more seductive than I had ever imagined. Kalen approaches then, slow, measured steps, and I feel the weight of his presence settle over me. He does not speak at first. Neither of us does. We simply stand in the moonlight, two halves of a whole, tethered by desire and restraint. Finally, he murmurs my name, softly, reverently, and I feel a tremor pass through me. I know he feels it too. The unspoken spark, the fire in the shadows of our hearts. I should not have come here, I say, my voice barely above a whisper. No, he replies, voice low and steady. You should be here. We've waited too long. I swallow hard. Too long. Yes, too long for fear. Too long for hesitation. The full moon approaches, and with it the promise of clarity. But tonight, clarity remains elusive. Tonight, the forest is a mirror of my heart. Dark, alive, full of sparks and shadows. And yet, as Kalen steps closer, I know one thing with certainty. My life will never be the same. Sparks have ignited. Choices loom on the horizon. And somewhere, just beyond the edge of the clearing, a shadow waits, patient, knowing that the storm of the silver moon has only just begun. The night stretches endlessly, filled with the tension of unspoken words, desires restrained, and futures yet to be written. And for the first time, I realize that survival is no longer enough. Desire, danger, love, they all demand more, and I am ready, in whatever way I must be, to face them. The forest feels different in the days after that night. The moon is smaller now, hiding behind drifting clouds, yet the memory of Kalen's eyes, of Darius's dark gaze, lingers in me like a pulse beneath my skin. I try to immerse myself in the daily routines of pack life, training, hunting, patrols, but nothing feels normal anymore. Every shadow, every rustle in the underbrush sets my nerves on edge. I know why. Darius is out there, and he is not the kind of alpha to be ignored. Kalen's presence is both a comfort and a complication. He walks near me, talks to me, but there is a tension in his movements that wasn't there before. I can feel it in the way he tilts his head when I speak, the way his golden eyes linger too long, betraying a yearning he refuses to admit. And I feel the same, though I fight it. The rules of our pack, the fear of causing conflict, the simple fact that our hearts are not meant to reveal themselves yet, all of it constrains me. But when we are alone, when the night is silent and the forest listens, our eyes meet and speak words neither of us can say aloud. And then there's Darius. I cannot stop thinking about him either. His presence is like a storm held in flesh and bone. The way he commands attention, the way his very being radiates authority and danger, I felt drawn to it, inexplicably. Even when he steps away, I can still sense him in the air, like electricity waiting to strike. I am terrified of what that attraction means. He is an intruder, a threat to our peace, yet my pulse quickens when I imagine him stepping silently through the trees toward me. It was during a patrol along the northern ridge that I first saw him again. He appeared at the edge of the valley, silhouetted by the rising sun, muscles taut and eyes fixed on me. I froze, a predator caught in the gaze of another. Darius's lips curved into a half smile, unreadable, teasing, and in that instant, everything inside me stirred: curiosity, fear, and a forbidden fascination. Kalen sensed it immediately. The shift in the air, the prickling along my spine, his hand brushed mine instinctively, almost possessively, grounding me, and I felt the heat of his concern burn into my skin. His gaze locked on Darius, fierce and unyielding. I could see the storm behind his golden eyes, and I knew, in that moment, that Kalen would do anything to protect me, even if it meant facing the other alpha head-on. Days passed like that, tense and unrelenting. Darius's intrusion gnawed at the edges of my mind. He did not speak, did not approach openly, but the very knowledge that he was out there, watching, calculating, made me restless. Every patrol, every hunt, every night beneath the silver light became charged with anticipation. I felt as though the forest itself held its breath, knowing what was coming but refusing to tell me. And then it happened. Darius entered our territory, not quietly this time, not just a fleeting shadow in the distance. He crossed the boundary lines, stepping into the heart of our pack with deliberate power, and it was immediately clear that this would not be a meeting of civility. Kalen confronted him, standing tall, the alpha aura radiating around him, and the two of them faced off in the clearing that had first bound me to both. I watched from the shadows, heart pounding, powerless to intervene. The air between them crackled with energy, pure dominance, pride, and raw strength. Neither would yield. They circled each other like predators assessing weakness, their bodies taut, muscles coiled for attack. And I knew as the tension mounted that this was no ordinary skirmish. This was something deeper, a collision of wills, a test of power, and ultimately a contest for my heart. The first strike came with the quiet inevitability of a storm breaking. Kalen lunged with speed I did not know he possessed, and Darius met him with a force that shook the earth beneath their feet. The sound of impact echoed through the trees. Claws against claws, teeth snapping, a growl that rattled my chest. I gasped, torn between fear and fascination. They were evenly matched, both extraordinary, both terrible in their strength and determination. And in that moment, I realized the prophecy's words were coming alive before me. Hearts of the proud burning, shadows turning all that was dear to ash. I wanted to run to Kalen, to Darius, to throw myself between them and stop the madness, but I could not. The forest would not let me. Nature itself had frozen us into silence, making me a helpless witness to the dance of power and passion, of desire and danger. Hours seemed to pass as they battled, testing each other, pushing limits, drawing on reserves of strength I did not know existed. And in that endless fight, I saw more than strength. I saw the reflection of myself in each of them. Kalen's restraint, his fear of decision, his loyalty to the pack that sometimes paralyzed him, all of it mirrored my own caution, my own hesitation. Darius's rage, his pride, his refusal to be denied, all of it mirrored the fire inside me that wanted to break free, that wanted to leap into the unknown. By the time night fell again, Darius had withdrawn, limping but unbroken, leaving Kalen standing amidst the clearing, chest heaving, fur matted, and golden eyes smoldering with both anger and something softer, something I could not name. He looked at me then, and in that single glance, I understood everything he had been holding back. His heart, like mine, had been caught in the crossfire of desire and duty, and the weight of unspoken words pressed down on us both. "Celine," he said, voice low, carrying a gravity that made the hairs on my arms stand. This is only the beginning." I nodded, unable to form words, because I knew he was right. The forest had spoken in growls and the clash of claws. The world outside our pack boundaries had moved, and I was caught between two forces I could not control. One of them was the love of my life. The other, an irresistible, dangerous pull that threatened to unravel everything. That night, alone beneath the silver glow of the moon, I could feel the prophecy stirring in my soul once more. When the silver moon reaches its peak, the hearts of the proud shall burn, and the shadow of fate will turn all that was held dear to ash. I did not yet understand the full meaning, but the weight of it pressed on me. Choices were coming, and soon. Decisions I could not delay any longer. Hearts would burn. Shadows would fall. And I, Celine Ardent, would have to navigate a path through desire, loyalty, and destiny unlike any I had ever faced. Sleep eluded me. I thought of Kaelin and I thought of Darius, and I wondered which heart would claim mine when the moon rose high, and which would fall beneath the shadow of fate. And somewhere, I knew the storm was only beginning. The days following Darius's intrusion were suffocating. The forest, usually my sanctuary, felt heavy and watchful. Every rustle of leaves, every snapping twig made my pulse jump. I could feel the pack on edge too. Tension clung to the air like a thick fog. Kaelin tried to maintain order, his voice calm and firm, but I could sense the cracks in his resolve. His golden eyes, which usually radiated confidence, now flickered with uncertainty. He was afraid of losing me, afraid of failing our pack, afraid of what Darius might do next. I should have felt reassured, knowing Kaelin cared for me, that he would protect me with everything he had, but then my thoughts drifted to Darius, and my chest tightened. There was a dangerous magnetism about him, a power that commanded not just respect but fear. I remembered the intensity in his eyes when we had first met, and the way he had looked at me as if I were both a prize and a threat. I could not explain why, but I was drawn to him in a way that terrified me. The forest seemed to hum with his presence, even when he was gone. I spent hours wandering the edge of our territory, pretending to scout for danger, yet hoping for a glimpse of Darius. Every time my eyes scanned the horizon, I imagined him stepping through the trees, powerful and inevitable, and a shiver of both fear and longing ran down my spine. I knew I was playing with fire, and yet I could not stop. Kaelin noticed my restlessness. One evening, under a crescent moon, he approached me while I stood near the riverbank, staring at my reflection. "Celine," he said softly, his voice carrying a weight that made my heart ache. "You should not wander so close to the borders alone. You know what might happen." "I know," I whispered, barely turning to look at him. "But I cannot stay inside while the forest waits. While he waits." Kaelin's expression darkened, a mixture of worry and frustration. Darius is dangerous. He is not just an alpha, he is a force that bends others to his will. I cannot let you be near him." "I am not a child, Kaelin," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I know what I'm doing. I just need to understand him, understand why he is here, why I feel—" My voice faltered, unable to finish the thought. Kaelin's gaze softened, and I saw the unspoken words between us. We both felt it, the unacknowledged truth of our hearts, but neither of us dared to speak. The full moon was still weeks away, yet our desires, our fears, and the unspoken attraction flared like wildfire. That night, sleep eluded me. I lay beneath the silver light, listening to the forest breathe, and thought of the prophecy. When the silver moon reaches its peak, the hearts of the proud shall burn, and the shadow of fate will turn all that is held dear to ash. The words whispered through my mind like a warning I could not ignore. Something was coming, something unstoppable. A few nights later, a pack scout returned with troubling news. Darius had been seen gathering allies from the north, training his pack for war. He was preparing, and there was no doubt in my mind that I was the center of his focus. My heart ached at the thought of the violence that might come, but also a strange thrill stirred within me. Darius was relentless, powerful, and utterly fearless. The thought of him crossing our boundaries again sent a mixture of fear and longing coursing through my veins. I knew I was playing with fire, and yet I could not stop. Kaelin noticed my restlessness. One evening, under a crescent moon, he approached me while I stood near the riverbank, staring at my reflection. "Celine," he said softly, his voice carrying a weight that made my heart ache. "You should not wander so close to the borders alone. You know what might happen." "I know," I whispered, barely turning to look at him. But I cannot stay inside while the forest waits. While he waits. Kalen's expression darkened, a mixture of worry and frustration. Darius is dangerous. He is not just an alpha, he is a force that bends others to his will. I cannot let you be near him. I am not a child, Kalen, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I know what I'm doing. I just need to understand him, understand why he is here, why I feel... My voice faltered, unable to finish the thought. Kalen's gaze softened, and I saw the unspoken words between us. We both felt it, the unacknowledged truth of our hearts, but neither of us dared to speak. The full moon was still weeks away, yet our desires, our fears, and the unspoken attraction flared like wildfire. That night, sleep eluded me. I lay beneath the silver light, listening to the forest breathe, and thought of the prophecy. When the silver moon reaches its peak, the hearts of the proud shall burn, and the shadow of fate will turn all that is held dear to ash. The words whispered through my mind like a warning I could not ignore. Something was coming, something unstoppable. A few nights later, a pack scout returned with troubling news. Darius had been seen gathering allies from the north, training his pack for war. He was preparing, and there was no doubt in my mind that I was the center of his focus. My heart ached at the thought of a violence that might come, but also a strange thrill stirred within me. Darius was relentless, powerful, and utterly fearless. The thought of him crossing our boundaries again sent a mixture of fear and longing coursing through my veins. Kalen sensed the danger too, and for the first time I saw him step fully into his role as alpha. His usual hesitation vanished, replaced by determination and strategy. He gathered our pack, reinforced our borders, and trained us with a sharpness that left no room for doubt. And yet, even as he prepared for battle, I could see the worry that lingered beneath his strength. He loved me, I knew that, but he was untested in the kind of decisions that would decide the fate of so many lives, including mine. In the quiet moments between patrols and training, I found myself alone with my thoughts, torn between Kalen and Darius. Kalen was my heart, my anchor, the one who had always been there, even when words were unspoken. Darius was a storm I could not resist, a danger that thrilled me even as it terrified me. Every glance he gave me, every shadowy presence in the distance, reminded me of the impossible choice I would soon face. And then the first signs of direct confrontation arrived. A small scouting party from Darius's pack crossed into our territory, testing our strength. The skirmish was brief but fierce, leaving both packs shaken and wary. Kalen and I stood together afterwards, bruised but resolute, the tension between us growing stronger with every heartbeat. We both knew that Darius's next move would be bolder, and that soon the choice would not be avoidable. I wandered the forest that night, letting the cool air soothe my racing thoughts. I thought of the prophecy again, its words echoing in my mind. Hearts of the proud shall burn. The shadow of fate will turn all that is held dear to ash. I could feel its truth pressing closer, like a tide rising toward the shore. The moon above was still only half full, but the fire had already begun. My heart ached for Kalen and quivered for Darius. I wanted both, yet I could have neither without danger and heartbreak. And I knew, deep within me, that the coming days would test everything I had ever known about loyalty, love, and the limits of power. The forest whispered its warning, and I could not ignore it. The storm was gathering, and I was caught in the center of it, helpless, yearning, and afraid. Sleep came finally, but it brought no peace. Dreams of claws, golden eyes, and the shadowed figure of Darius haunted me. I woke with the taste of fear on my tongue, and a longing in my chest I could not name. The prophecy's words followed me, a relentless reminder that soon hearts would burn, and all that I held dear could be turned to ash. The days grew shorter, the nights colder, and every heartbeat carried the weight of what was to come. I was Celine ardent, torn between love and desire, loyalty and temptation, strength and surrender. And as the full moon approached, I realized there would be no more hesitation, no more waiting. The time to choose, or to be chosen, was drawing near. The storm of our fate had begun. The days that followed the skirmish at the northern border were unbearable. The forest, which had always been a sanctuary of solace and quiet strength, seemed to close in on me, its trees whispering secrets I did not want to hear. Every shadow carried the weight of anticipation, and every gust of wind seemed to carry a warning. I could feel the tension ripple through our pack, a nervous energy that made even the bravest warriors glance over their shoulders more often than they should. Kalen tried to maintain calm, issuing orders and planning our defenses, but even his strong voice betrayed a flicker of unease. I could see it in his eyes when he thought no one was watching. The golden glow that usually shone with unshakable confidence now flickered with doubt. It was not weakness, it was fear. Fear of what Darius might do, fear of losing his pack, fear of losing me. And yet, even in that fear, there was an undeniable determination. Kalen was stepping into a role he had avoided for so long. The alpha I knew, the one who hesitated, who feared decision-making, was beginning to emerge as a leader capable of standing against the storm that Darius represented. And then there was Darius. He had not yet crossed into our territory again, but his presence was palpable. The stories from the scouts were chilling, each account painting him as a figure of relentless power, a predator whose very name demanded obedience and respect. I could not deny the pull he exerted over me. The first time I had seen him, his presence had been like fire, dangerous, intoxicating, impossible to resist. And now, as days passed without his arrival, I found myself imagining him standing at the edge of our borders, his dark eyes fixed on me, daring me to step closer. I hated that I was drawn to him. I hated that part of me longed for his touch, even as I loved Kalen with a depth that frightened me. That longing, that dangerous fascination, gnawed at my chest during quiet moments. Every glance from Kalen reminded me of what I already had, a love steady, enduring, safe. Yet every shadow, every thought of Darius reminded me of what I might lose, of the temptation of power, and the thrill of a love that burned like wildfire. Kalen noticed my unease. One evening, while the sun dipped beneath the horizon, painting the forest in shades of gold and crimson, he approached me as I stood near the river, watching the water shimmer in the dying light. "You've been restless," he said softly, not accusing, merely observing. "I am," I admitted, turning to meet his gaze. "I cannot stop thinking about him. Darius, I try, Kalen, I really do, but he—" My words faltered, caught between fear and longing. Kalen took a step closer, his presence grounding yet suffocating in its intensity. "He is dangerous," he said, "not just to you, but to all of us. I've trained the pack, strengthened our defenses, but he is relentless. He will not stop until he has what he wants, and I will not allow him to have you." "I cannot stop me," I whispered, more to myself than to him, though he heard the tremor in my voice. "My heart, it is not mine to command." Kalen's jaw tightened, and I saw the struggle behind his eyes, the battle between duty, love, and fear. He wanted to protect me, to shield me from danger, but he could not control my feelings, nor the pull Darius had over me. And in that moment, I understood fully the weight of the prophecy. When the silver moon reaches its peak, the hearts of the proud shall burn, and the shadow of fate will turn all that is held dear to ash. It was not just a warning, it was a prelude. We were approaching a point of no return, and every decision, every glance, every unspoken word would ripple through the lives of those around us. The tension escalated the following morning. Scouts reported that Darius's forces had crossed further into neighboring lands, testing boundaries, seeking weaknesses. Kalen immediately summoned the pack, rallying us with precision and authority I had not seen before. His voice rang out, firm and commanding, as he outlined patrol rotations, defensive positions, and contingency plans. I watched him, heart swelling with admiration and fear. He was becoming the leader our pack needed, yet I knew he still lacked the experience to predict Darius's cunning moves. I joined the patrols, moving silently through the forest, the cool earth beneath my feet grounding me as I observed the perimeter. My senses were heightened, attuned to every rustle, every distant howl, every flicker of movement. And through it all, my mind wandered, unbidden, to Darius. The memory of his eyes, the way he carried himself, the way he radiated power, it haunted me. There was a promise in his gaze, a silent vow that he would not rest until I was his, regardless of the cost. One evening, Kaylin and I found ourselves alone in the clearing near the heart of our territory. The sun had dipped below the horizon, leaving the sky a deep indigo, scattered with stars. He reached for my hand, his touch gentle, yet insistent. "I cannot protect you from your heart," he admitted, voice low. "I can only be here and hope that you choose wisely." I looked into his eyes, seeing the depth of his love, the unwavering loyalty, and the courage that had been growing within him. I wanted to tell him everything, to confess the pull Darius had over me, but the words lodged in my throat. How could I explain that my heart was already divided, torn between the love I had known and the dangerous allure of a power I could not resist? The night was silent, save for the distant call of a lone wolf. The forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the inevitable clash that loomed on the horizon. I lay awake that night, visions of confrontation and destruction replaying in my mind. The prophecy haunted me, each word a chilling reminder of what was to come. Hearts would burn, and everything I held dear could be reduced to ash. Days passed in a tense rhythm of patrols, training, and planning. Kaylin and I stole moments alone when we could, our eyes speaking the words our lips could not. Every touch, every glance was heavy with unspoken desire and fear. Yet even in those fleeting moments, the shadow of Darius loomed, a constant reminder that the choice I would have to make was approaching, and it would not wait until the full moon. And then the first direct challenge came. A single scout, sent to probe our defenses, returned battered and barely alive. The news confirmed our worst fears. Darius was preparing for an incursion, and he would not hesitate to strike at the heart of our pack. Kaylin's leadership was tested as never before. Orders were shouted, defenses reinforced, and every pack member took their position with grim determination. I stood beside Kaylin, feeling the weight of responsibility press against my shoulders. My love for him was unwavering, yet I could not deny the strange, magnetic pull Darius exerted over me. The forest was alive with tension, and the air seemed to hum with anticipation. Every instinct, every sense was on high alert. As the days edged closer to the full moon, I realized that nothing would be the same again. Choices would be made, loyalties tested, and hearts would burn. The storm of fate was gathering, and I was caught at its center, powerless to resist its pull. I was Celine Ardent, daughter of the forest, torn between love and desire, loyalty and temptation, strength and surrender. The time for waiting was over. The battle for my heart, my pack, and the very fate of our lives was about to begin. The moon hung low and silver in the sky, a silent witness to the gathering storm, and I could feel its power pressing against the edges of reality. The prophecy whispered in my mind, chilling and inevitable. Hearts of the proud shall burn, and the shadow of fate will turn all that is held dear to ash. And I knew, with a clarity that terrified me, that soon nothing would be as it had ever been. The night was darker than usual, as though the sky itself knew what was coming. Heavy clouds swallowed the silver glow of the moon, leaving shadows that danced and twisted among the trees. Every leaf, every branch seemed to hold its breath, and even the wind moved cautiously, whispering warnings that only the most attuned could hear. I could feel it before anyone said a word. The tension in the forest was thick enough to taste. Wolves, normally confident and fearless, padded carefully, ears swiveling, eyes wide, sensing the storm that was about to crash into our lives. I knew, deep in my bones, that the calm we had been clinging to was fragile. Shattered moments were coming, and nothing would ever be the same. Kaylin stood at the forefront of our clearing, his presence commanding, yet strained. Firelight flickered across his features, painting him in shifting tones of shadow and gold. I watched him, my heart torn between the fierce pride I felt for him and the gnawing fear of what was to come. Kaylin had grown, trained, and hardened, but even the strongest of hearts can falter when fate decides to test it. He was our alpha, our shield, and yet I could see the tension coiled tight in his shoulders, the faint tremor in his fingers, the way his eyes scanned every shadow as if daring danger to reveal itself. Then he appeared. Darius stepped from the forest's edge as though the night itself had given him shape. Every movement exuded power, authority, and danger. Wolves instinctively fell back, a low growl rumbling through the clearing at the mere sight of him. He did not hurry, did not rush. Every step was measured, deliberate. A predator confident in his prey's fear. And yet it was not fear I felt. Something far more dangerous stirred in my chest. The pull toward him, the inexplicable allure, surged through me. My heart betrayed me, responding to the danger with a yearning I could not suppress. Kalen moved instantly, stepped forward to intercept him. "This ends tonight," he said, his voice steady and unwavering, even as the tremor in the air mirrored the tension in my chest. Darius's smile was cold, dangerous, predatory. "It ends when I say it ends," he said, his gaze fixed on me, dark and unyielding, and I felt the same spark of attraction that had haunted me for days. My heart lurched painfully between the man who had always been my anchor and the one who consumed my thoughts in restless longing. The clash was immediate. Darius lunged with unmatched speed, a blur of power and intent, and Kalen met him head-on. The impact shook the ground, throwing dirt and leaves into the air. I felt the force in my chest as if I were part of the collision, every sinew in my body straining to respond. They moved with a synchronicity that was terrifying, each strike calculated, each maneuver a deadly dance. I was rooted to the spot, my breath caught in my throat, unable to turn away. The forest roared around us with the cries of wolves and the crashing of limbs, yet I could hear the beat of my own heart, as if it were a drum calling me to action I could not take. Kalen fought with everything he had, yet Darius's aggression was relentless. Every blow carried the weight of a storm, every movement a challenge not just to Kalen's strength, but to his will. And still Kalen held. His determination was fueled by something beyond muscle and bone. It was love, loyalty, and the desperate need to protect me. My chest ached with the fear and pride I felt watching him, knowing that the man I loved was fighting not just for me, but for all of us. And yet, Darius's pull was undeniable. Every glance in my direction was a command I could not resist. I had never felt attraction like this, raw, magnetic, dangerous. My body betrayed me as much as my heart. The pull of two worlds, two men, two destinies collided inside me, and I could not choose. Not yet. The clash escalated, a storm of sinew and power, roars and growls, shattering the forest's calm. Wolves howled warnings from the tree line, their voices mingling with the grunts and cries of the combatants. I wanted to step forward, to intervene, that I knew that any misstep could tip the balance, ending lives. Kalen's life, Darius's life, the lives of all who depended on them, and frighteningly, my own. The prophecy pressed against me like a shadow. When the silver moon reaches its peak, the hearts of the proud shall burn, and the shadow of fate will turn all that is held dear to ash. Time seemed to stretch, folding in on itself. I saw Kalen falter, a small misstep, a brief opening, and my breath caught. Darius took advantage immediately, striking with precision, a calculated brutality that forced Kalen to his knees. My chest tightened as I watched him struggle, every muscle quivering, yet he refused to surrender. Pride, love, and desperate need to protect me held him upright, even as Darius pressed forward. "You will not have her," Kalen roared, a growl that shook the trees, that carried over the cries of the forest. Every word vibrated with intent, raw emotion, and unyielding devotion. Darius laughed, low and dangerous, a sound that made my blood run cold, yet my heart race. "She is mine," he said, voice smooth and cruel. "As fate has decreed, she will belong to me, and I will take her whether you stand or fall." The clash continued, each movement more violent than the last. My vision blurred as they collided, knocked each other down, rose again, and struck with fury. The earth trembled beneath their feet. I wanted to cry out, to make them stop.
But fear anchored me to the spot. I wanted Kalen to win. He was my heart, my safety. But I could not deny Darius's overwhelming presence, the magnetism that seemed to pull me toward danger. The fight dragged on, and I felt my strength draining simply from watching. I could see the strain on both alphas, the sweat, the blood, the small tremors of exhaustion, but neither gave in. Pride, love, and the unspoken challenge to fate drove them onward, and I realized with terror that neither could emerge unscathed. The prophecy was not a distant warning. It was here, unfolding in the clash of the strongest hearts I had ever known. Kalen stumbled, barely catching himself, and Darius pressed forward with a roar that shook the treetops. My mind screamed at me to choose, to intervene, but I could not. My soul was torn in two, and each moment of hesitation fed the fire consuming us all. Wolves fled or crouched low, sensing the inevitability of devastation. Even the air seemed heavy, thick with the scent of impending blood and heartbreak. And as the wind swept through the clearing, rustling leaves like whispered warnings, I realized that the storm had only begun. The first clash had begun, but it would not be the last. I whispered their names into the night. Kalen, Darius. My heart cannot choose, and yet it must. My soul is torn, and I fear what comes next. And as the echoes of the fight mingled with the wind and the wolves' cries, I understood the terrible truth. The prophecy was coming for all of us, and nothing, not love, not power, not loyalty, would stop it from consuming everything I held dear.
The forest had fallen into a tense silence after the first clash, but the calm was deceptive. It was the kind of stillness that gnawed at your soul, heavy with unspoken danger, foreboding, and dread. Even the moon seemed reluctant to show itself fully, hiding behind thick clouds, as though it too feared the storm that was brewing. My breath came in shallow, uneven bursts, each one trembling with the anticipation of what was to come. I had never felt such tension, never been suspended between hope and terror, with every heartbeat echoing like a drum of warning. Kalen sat a few paces from me, bloodied and exhausted, his chest rising and falling with labored breaths. His eyes, though dulled by pain, still glimmered with unyielding determination. I wanted to reach out, to hold him, to remind him that I was here, that he was not alone. But the moment I moved, my heart twisted painfully at the thought of Darius, looming in the shadows like a specter I could not resist. The allure of him had not faded. If anything, it had intensified. Every instinct in me screamed that danger and desire could not coexist without consuming me entirely. "Celine," Kalen said, his voice hoarse but steady, carrying the authority of a wolf who refused to bow. "You must stay back. This is bigger than us. I cannot let you—" I shook my head, cutting him off before he could continue. "No, I cannot stand aside while you face him, Kalen. I will not. Not again. I cannot bear it." My voice cracked, betraying the storm of emotions roiling within me. Fear, love, longing, guilt, they all collided into a vortex I could not escape. Kalen's eyes softened, shadowed by pain and something deeper, something unspoken. I saw it there, the truth he had been hiding, the confession his heart refused to voice until the full moon. And yet now, with Darius out there, the timing had become irrelevant. "Celine, you must trust me," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the whispers of the wind. I nodded, though it was a hollow gesture. Trust. How could I trust when my own heart was fractured? When I longed for him, yet could not forget Darius, the shadow that haunted the edges of my thoughts. I could not turn away, even if it meant tearing myself apart. And then he appeared, Darius, emerging from the darkness as if the forest itself had parted to grant him passage. The tension in the air thickened instantly, suffocating, electric.
Wolves around us growled low in warning, but none dared approach him. His presence alone commanded obedience, respect, and fear. He did not rush, did not hesitate. Every movement radiated power, authority, and menace. "You cannot hide him forever," Darius said, his voice smooth, deliberate, and cruelly magnetic. "He may have your loyalty, Celine, but he does not have your heart. Not fully." The words cut through me like a blade. My chest tightened, my breath catching, and I struggled to respond. My heart felt like it was being ripped in two, pulled violently toward the dangerous allure I could not resist. Kaelin rose, swaying slightly from exhaustion, and met Darius's gaze. "You will not have her," he said, each word resonating with every ounce of strength left in him. "She belongs to this pack, and she belongs to me." Darius smiled, a predator's smile, cold and calculating. The pack means nothing if its leader cannot protect what he loves. She is mine whether you fight or fall. The tension escalated to a suffocating crescendo. I could feel the pressure in the forest, the electricity of anticipation coiling around every tree, every shadow. The wolves themselves trembled, instinctively knowing that the next clash would decide far more than just two alphas' fates. It would determine the survival of the packs and the future of everyone I loved. Kaelin lunged first, driven by raw determination, fatigue, and the love he had kept hidden for too long. Darius met him with equal force, and the impact echoed through the forest like the strike of thunder. They collided again and again, each movement a calculated attempt to outmatch the other, each strike carrying the weight of years of pride, desire, and unspoken longing. I watched, my chest tight, unable to look away. Every strike Kaelin took, every calculated maneuver Darius executed felt like a personal wound. I wanted to intervene, to stop it, to beg them to reconsider, but I could not. Not when the prophecy loomed over us like a dark cloud. When the silver moon reaches its peak, the hearts of the proud shall burn, and the shadow of fate will turn all that is held dear to ash. Hours seemed to stretch into eternity as the battle raged. Kaelin faltered more than once, his body screaming in protest, but his spirit refused to surrender. Darius, too, bore the marks of the fight. Cuts, bruises, exhaustion, but he pressed on relentlessly, driven by pride, desire, and the need to claim what he believed was his. I could see the strain in Kaelin's eyes, the weariness that threatened to pull him under. My chest ached with every falter, my hands trembling as I reached out instinctively, as though I could somehow will him stronger. And yet, Darius's pull on my heart was equally powerful. His eyes, dark and consuming, promised danger and passion in equal measure. The forest seemed to hold its breath, and I knew that nothing would survive this clash unchanged. Trees groaned as if under the weight of anticipation, the wind carried whispers of despair, and even the wolves fell silent, watching the two strongest hearts they had ever known tear each other apart. Minutes, or was it hours, passed in a blur of motion, sweat, blood, and raw emotion. Kaelin faltered, nearly falling, and Darius took the advantage, striking with precision that could have ended it all. I screamed, my voice lost in the roar of the forest, as Kaelin barely managed to block the blow. He met Darius's gaze, eyes blazing with a combination of rage, love, and desperation. "Celine," Kaelin growled, his voice low, strained. "Remember, I love you. Whatever happens, know that." The words cut me deeper than any physical wound could. My body shook, my vision blurred with tears. I wanted to reach them, to stop them, to make the world pause so that this fight could end without death and destruction. But the forest, the prophecy, and the inevitable pull of fate would not allow it. Darius snarled, a sound that made my stomach churn with a mixture of fear and longing. Love will not save him. Love will not save you. Only strength, only dominance, only the one who proves themselves will survive. The battle escalated further. I could no longer count the strikes, the falls, the rises. Every motion was a blur of violence and raw emotion. Kalen's pride pushed him beyond exhaustion. Darius's desire for control fueled a brutal intensity neither of us could have predicted. And I realized, with a mixture of horror and awe, that neither could survive unscathed. The prophecy was coming true in ways I could not have imagined. I fell to my knees, the tears streaming freely now, my heart torn between the two men I loved in different ways. The pull toward Darius was intoxicating, dangerous, irresistible. Yet Kalen, my heart, my protector, my anchor, stood before me, battered but unbroken. The weight of choice pressed down on me heavy as stone, and I understood the bitter truth: I could not save them. I could not prevent the devastation. All I could do was watch as destiny unfolded its terrible plan. The battle reached its peak under the shadow of the nearly full moon. Each strike, each maneuver carried the weight of fate. Every roar echoed with the prophecy's cruel promise. The hearts of the proud shall burn, and the shadow of fate will turn all that is held dear to ash. And then, the unthinkable happened. In a final, brutal exchange, strength met strength, pride clashed with pride, and the forest was filled with a terrible, bone-shaking silence. Kalen and Darius, equally matched in power, skill, and will, fell in a storm of violence that neither could survive. The earth shook beneath them, the wolves scattered in fear, and I felt my heart shatter into 1,000 irreparable pieces. I screamed, running toward them, but it was too late. The men I loved, each in different ways, each holding a piece of my soul, were gone. Bloodied, broken, and still, their bodies told the story of the battle they could not escape, the prophecy they could not defy. And in the shadow of devastation, I realized the bitter truth: the prophecy had come to life, and everything I held dear had been turned to ash.
The forest had never felt so hollow. The trees, once full of life and whispers of the wind, now stood as silent witnesses to the devastation left in the wake of Kalen and Darius. The air was thick with the metallic tang of blood and the faint, lingering hum of residual power, a warning that nature itself had witnessed a clash it would not soon forget. I wandered aimlessly among the fallen leaves and shattered branches, my bare feet brushing against soil still warm from the struggle that had ended not in victory, but in mutual annihilation. My heart was a shattered mosaic of grief and confusion. How could two forces so powerful, so indomitable, destroy themselves in such a catastrophic, unrelenting dance? My chest ached, my lungs burned, and every beat of my heart seemed to scream their names in despair. Kalen, Darius, both gone, taken not by fate alone, but by the choices they had made, by pride and desire that neither could restrain. I collapsed beside the remnants of the battle, my hands trembling as I traced the scars left in the earth, each footprint, each broken tree limb, each fleck of blood told the story of their final moments. And yet, as I wept, a new presence stirred in the shadows, one I could feel before I saw, strong, controlled, and undeniable. My wolf stirred as well, alert to the difference in this aura. There was no arrogance here, no reckless pride, only measured power, tempered by purpose and a calmness that promised both protection and dominance. I lifted my head and he emerged, a figure both imposing and awe-inspiring, moving with the certainty of one who had mastered himself. His eyes, like twin pools of silver, seemed to pierce through me, seeing both my grief and my hidden hope. For the first time since the bloodshed, I felt a spark, not of desire, not of fleeting fascination, but of something steadier, something I could perhaps build on. "You are Celine," he said, his voice calm, deep, and commanding, yet not cruel. "I have come because the balance has been broken, and you, more than anyone, need guidance, protection, and truth." I stared at him, my tears still streaming, unsure whether I should flee or reach out. The weight of the prophecy pressed heavily on me. The hearts of the proud shall burn, and the shadow of fate will turn all that is held dear to ash. It had come to life in the most painful way, leaving me hollow, broken, and weary. How could I trust again, love again, when the two men I had held in my heart were gone? He knelt a short distance away, not pressing forward, not attempting to intimidate, simply observing. "I am not here to replace them," he said gently, "nor am I here to claim what was never mine, but I am here to ensure that what remains, the pack, the balance, and you, does not fall into ruin. I am the one who can restore what has been lost." Something in me, long buried beneath grief and despair, stirred. Maybe it was hope, tentative and fragile. Maybe it was the recognition of strength without cruelty, authority without arrogance. Whatever it was, I felt drawn toward him, my instincts whispering that this presence was different, reliable, unwavering. Days passed and I watched him work. His name, I learned, was Theron. He moved with precision, gathering scattered wolves, healing wounds both physical and emotional, and enforcing a discipline that Kaelin had never been able to maintain. There was no fear in his leadership, only respect. His presence calmed the turmoil within the pack, and gradually it began to calm the storm within me. Yet grief clung to my heart like a shadow. I could not forget Kaelin. His laughter, the sparks of affection that had danced between us, unspoken but undeniable. I could not forget Darius, the dangerous pull that he had exerted, the thrill of forbidden attraction that had shaken me to my core. Their memories haunted me, and I found myself caught between reverence for what was lost and the cautious curiosity about what Theron offered. One evening, as the silver light of the moon filtered through the canopy, Theron approached me while I sat by the edge of the river that ran through the pack's territory. His reflection shimmered in the water alongside mine, and for a moment I allowed myself to breathe in his calm, measured presence. "Celine," he said softly, "you carry a heavy burden. The hearts of those you loved are gone, but the pack still needs you, and you, more than anyone, need someone who can stand beside you, not above you, not in place of, but with you." I looked up at him, my tears still clouded, unsure whether I should flee or reach out. I don't know if I can," I admitted, my voice trembling. "I loved them both, Kaelin, Darius, and now I don't know if my heart can feel again without guilt, without fear." Theron sat beside me, close enough that I could feel his warmth, but not so close as to overwhelm me. "Grief is not weakness," he said. "It is the acknowledgement of love, but it does not bind you forever. The heart, Celine, is resilient. It can break and rebuild, and when it does so stronger, wiser, and more capable of discerning what is true." I wanted to believe him, wanted to accept the idea that the pain could transform into something new, but the ghosts of Kaelin and Darius lingered, shadows that would not let me rest. "How can I trust again?" I asked, my voice almost a whisper. "How can I love when the last time I did, it ended in death and destruction?" Theron's gaze softened, though his strength remained unmistakable. "You fear the past," he said, "and rightly, but the past does not dictate your future. You have the choice to step forward, to embrace strength without pride, to love without fear." I met his gaze, searching for deceit,
manipulation, or false promises, but found none. Only honesty, strength, and a calm determination that spoke of experience far beyond my own. I realized then that I was beginning to see a path forward, not to erase the past, but to honor it while building something new. Days turned into weeks, and slowly I allowed myself to engage with life again. I helped tend to the pack, training younger wolves, strategizing defenses, and learning from Theron's wisdom. He never demanded affection, never imposed closeness, only offered guidance, strength, and patience. And in return, I found a new respect, a fragile but growing trust, and the first glimmers of love that dared to shine through the remnants of my grief. It was during one of these evenings, under the same silver moon that had witnessed so much devastation, that Theron finally spoke words that made my heart stir with a cautious warmth. "Celine," he said, standing before me, the silver light casting silver highlights in his hair, illuminating the quiet strength in his eyes. "I do not ask you to forget Kaelin or Darius. They were part of your story, and part of what has made you who you are. But I ask you to see me not as a replacement, but as a continuation, a possibility that strength, love, and loyalty can coexist without destruction. Will you allow yourself to step forward with me?" I looked up at him, the moonlight casting silver highlights in his hair, illuminating the quiet strength in his eyes. I felt the stirrings of something I thought impossible, a willingness to hope, to trust, to consider love again. My heart, battered and scarred, had begun to rebuild itself, slowly, with him. And for the first time since the prophecy had come alive, I felt a flicker of peace, not complete, not final, but enough to know that perhaps from the ashes, life and love could rise again.
The dawn was pale and silver, the first light of morning spilling across the broken landscape that had once been a battlefield. The air smelled of wet earth and lingering smoke, a silent testament to the destruction that pride and unchecked power had wrought. I stood at the edge of the clearing, my heart heavy yet lighter than it had been for weeks. Kaelin and Darius were gone, their absence a hollow ache in my chest, but their memory, now tempered by time and reflection, was no longer a torment that chained me to despair. Theron emerged from the shadows, moving with the quiet confidence that had become his hallmark. Even in silence, his presence radiated strength and steadiness, a force that did not demand submission, but invited trust. He stopped beside me, his gaze meeting mine, and for the first time I felt the full weight of the possibilities before us. Not of war, of blood, or of chaos, but of renewal, hope, and life that could grow beyond the ashes. "The packs will rebuild," he said softly. "They will remember the cost of pride and unbridled power. But they will also remember what it means to have leadership that protects rather than destroys, that guides rather than dominates." I nodded, my thoughts drifting to the prophecy that had haunted my every step. "The hearts of the proud shall burn, and the shadow of fate will turn all that is held dear to ash." Indeed, it had come to pass in ways none could have predicted. Kaelin and Darius, each in their own way, had been consumed by their pride, by the intensity of their desire, by the weight of the expectations that came with their power. And yet, even in destruction, the prophecy had not ended. It had opened the way for something new, something more balanced and enduring. My wolf stirred within me, sensing the shift in the energy around us. The pack, scattered and grief-stricken after the deaths of their alphas, was beginning to coalesce under Theron's guidance. His approach to leadership was different, measured, and deliberate. Where Kaelin had been hesitant, afraid to make decisions that could endanger his people, and Darius had been reckless, consumed by anger and pride, Theron was steady. He commanded respect without fear, instilled loyalty without coercion, and inspired trust without pretense. I realized then that this was the man my heart had been waiting for. Not a replacement, not a consolation, but a partner who could stand beside me, shoulder to shoulder, in a world that demanded strength, wisdom, and courage. Yet even as I felt the stirrings of hope, grief lingered, like a shadow. I missed Kaelin's warmth, his gentle humor, and the quiet, unspoken sparks we had shared. I missed the dangerous allure of Darius, the way that he ignited a thrill in me that I could never have anticipated. But slowly, in the presence of Theron, I understood that love did not have to be a battlefield. It could be steady, nurturing, and enduring. It could grow without consuming everything in its path. Days turned to weeks, and the pack slowly returned to a semblance of normalcy. Theron led patrols, healed the injured, and rebuilt trust among the wolves who had lost faith in leadership. I assisted where I could, guiding younger wolves, mediating disputes, and learning from his wisdom. Our bond deepened not through forced affection or overt declarations, but through shared experiences, trust, and the quiet understanding that had grown between us. One evening, as the full moon began to rise over the horizon, I found myself standing on a cliff overlooking the forest. The silver light bathed everything in an ethereal glow, reflecting off the river below and highlighting the majesty of the land that had been scarred yet endured. Theron joined me, standing silently at my side, and for the first time, I felt the full weight of the possibilities before us. Not of war, of blood, or of chaos, but of renewal, hope, and life that could grow beyond the ashes. "Do you ever think about them?" I asked quietly, my voice barely more than a whisper. Theron's gaze softened, but he did not avert his eyes. "Every day," he admitted. "Kaelin and Darius, they were part of your story, and part of what shaped this world. But they are gone. And in their absence, there is now room for something new, something stronger." I exhaled slowly, letting the words settle. "I've been afraid. Afraid that moving forward would feel like betrayal, that loving again would dishonor their memory. But being here, with you, it feels different. It feels like hope." Theron reached out, his hand brushing mine in a gentle, deliberate motion. "It is hope, and you deserve it. You have carried grief, loss, and fear for too long. It is time to allow yourself to feel again, to trust, to love. Not recklessly, not destructively, but fully and wisely." The moon climbed higher, casting its light across the forest, illuminating both the scars of the past and the possibilities of the future. I looked at Theron, at the calm strength in his eyes, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I allowed myself to imagine a life beyond pain and sorrow. Weeks turned to months, and the pack flourished under Theron's leadership. Wolves once broken by grief and uncertainty now moved with confidence, united under a leader who inspired loyalty through respect and guidance rather than fear. I worked alongside him, my own confidence growing as I embraced my role not only as a member of the pack, but as a guide, a protector, and a companion. Theron and I spent countless hours together, not as alpha and mate in title alone, but as partners, learning the rhythms of one another's strengths, fears, and desires. Our bond was not forged in chaos or necessity, but in mutual respect, understanding, and the quiet understanding that had grown between us. One night, as the moon reached its zenith, Theron turned to me, with a look I had come to recognize as sincere and unwavering. "Theron, Celine, our journey has not been easy. You have carried grief that few could comprehend, and I have tested your patience and trust. But now I ask you, will you stand with me, not as a survivor of what is past, but as a partner in what is to come?" I felt the weight of his words, the gravity of the moment. The memories of Kaelin and Darius still lingered, but they no longer held power over my heart. I had mourned, I had learned, and I had grown. I had been tempered by loss, strengthened by survival, and guided by the steady presence of Theron. "Yes," I whispered, my voice trembling yet resolute. "I will stand with you. Together." His smile was quiet but filled with warmth, and he extended his hand. I took it, feeling a surge of certainty, trust, and the first true spark of joy I had allowed myself to feel since the prophecy had unfolded. The forest around us seemed to sigh in relief, the winds carrying whispers of renewal and promise. Wolves howled in the distance, not in mourning or fear, but in celebration of survival, unity, and the dawn of a new era. I felt my wolf stir within me, sensing not only the strength of the pack, but the strength within myself, a power born of resilience, love, and trust. In the weeks and months that followed, the pack's territory was restored, scars healed, and life returned to its natural rhythm. Theron led with wisdom, courage, and compassion, guiding the wolves without arrogance, without recklessness, and without the destructive pride that had claimed the previous alphas. The memory of Kaelin and Darius remained,
honored in rituals and quiet reflection, serving as a reminder of the cost of power untempered by wisdom and love. And I, Celine, found a place not just as a mate, but as a partner, a guide, and a beacon of hope. I had been broken, tested, and tempered, yet I had survived. The prophecy had come to pass, but it had also opened the way for life, love, and leadership that was enduring, balanced, and true. Theron and I faced challenges, as any leader and mate must, but we faced them together, our strength complementing one another, our bond unshakable. In him I found not only love, but protection, guidance, and unwavering support. And in myself, I found the courage to embrace life, to trust again, and to believe in the possibility of happiness beyond loss. As the sun rose one morning, painting the forest in hues of gold and amber, I stood beside Theron, feeling the warmth of his presence and the steady beat of my own heart. The pack moved around us, alive, thriving, and united, a living testament to resilience, leadership, and love that endured even after devastation. The prophecy had whispered of ash and destruction, and indeed, the proud had burned. But from those ashes, something stronger, wiser, and enduring had risen. A new era for the pack, a new chapter in my life, and a love that was steady, unyielding, and true. For the first time, I truly understood that endings were not always sorrowful, that loss could give way to growth, and that love, when tempered by patience, trust, and understanding, could endure beyond even the shadow of fate. And in that moment, with the sun rising and the pack thriving, I knew that life, love, and loyalty had returned, not as fragile whispers, but as a resounding declaration that even in the aftermath of tragedy, hope could flourish, and the heart could rise again.